Alright everybody, I'm really excited. We're getting into it now. My top 100 movies of the decade. On this list I will be counting down my movies from number 100 to number 81, and I will be talking to you a little bit about what they're about and why I like them so much. So with that said, let's get right into it. We're actually starting off with a documentary. This is a movie from 2018 called Minding the Gap. This movie is about skateboarding and a lot of the kind of social growth and awareness that goes on in the lives of some individuals during their time growing up in the skateboarding culture. It is a really beautiful and also difficult look at growing up and some of the things that come along with it. I don't want to ruin too much of it because it's a really solid movie, but it's one of several documentaries that are going to be on my list, and actually even this is a pretty documentary heavy 20 movies here for me entering the list, because number 99 is going to be Jiro Dreams of Sushi. So this movie it's a 2011 movie, and it's about a sushi chef in Japan who has basically just made his life work being a master artist of sushi and creating sushi. It's a beautiful film, actually, and has some of the most beautiful shots of making sushi and making food and really what it looks like to perfect an art. And there's a lot to be dug in on, and I think it carries over to life as well. As you imagine what it looks like to make whatever your form of art may be, if you're a painter, if you're a writer, I think there's a lot to be learned and thought about in watching this movie as that kind of translation maybe into everyday life. My number 98 movie is going to be Gone Girl. This is starring Ben Affleck and Rosalind Pike, I believe, and this is a David Fincher movie. This movie definitely has some really intense moments and a plot movement that was a doozy, I'll say that. I really enjoyed it overall though, and it's a lot of drama, it's a lot of intrigue, and I will say Ben Affleck definitely has a weird performance, but I think it works for the movie, and I think that it really is one of the top of the decade in my book. So number 97 is going to be The Nice Guys, starring Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. This one came out, I believe, 2016, and it's a fun crime movie, kind of. These two guys, they're more like private detectives and kind of just take things into their own hands, and it's a comedy. It's got some really funny stuff from Ryan Gosling. I don't know if I've seen Ryan Gosling this funny before in a movie, and he really shines. Russell Crowe's just this gruff, guy trying to take down whatever evils in the world, and also Ryan Gosling has a girl who plays his daughter in the movie, and she's just hilarious. It's a really fun watch, a funny movie in general, and Nice Guys, it lands at number 97. Number 96, the first of the war movies on my list, is going to be Hacksaw Ridge. 2016 movie as well. This one stars Andrew Garfield as a soldier who is a Seventh-day Adventist and doesn't believe in violence. So he actually goes onto this battlefield with the hopes of just being a light and trying to save people in need. And this is a movie that I just found to be really inspiring and really uplifting, and that's what made it stick with me through this time and put it on this list. I think Mel Gibson does a good job in his return to being back behind the camera. I mean, some of that war violence in this movie is just really intense and visceral, but I think it accomplishes its job. So it might be a little slow to start, but it really gets to be a really solid watch about a third of the way into the movie. My number 95 is The Babadook. That's going to be the first horror movie on this list, actually, and I think The Babadook is a highly underrated movie from this decade. I feel like because it doesn't have the huge scares that a lot of people are expecting horror movies, it's been undervalued, but it really has an interesting look at trauma and at just exhaustion and what it looks like for someone to have to deal with just getting over some traumatic events in their life, and it's largely metaphorical. And I think if you're able to watch it through that lens, you'll really appreciate The Babadook and what's being done in that film. It is definitely one of my favorites of the decade. 94, Taika Waititi, Hunt for the Wilderpeople. This is a movie I actually just saw recently for the first time. I wanted to catch up on it, and I am so glad I did, because Taika Waititi is just a director that has my number. This guy can make me laugh in whatever movie he is directing, and this is no exception. I love the kid is great, and then of course you've got, I almost called him Alan Grant because Jurassic Park, but Sam Neill does a great job. Is the most New Zealand movie on my list for sure, because it is a very New Zealandish movie. And it loves the scenery, it loves the vibe, but it is a fun watch. Definitely a recommend for those who haven't seen it. Number 93 makes Pixar's first appearance on the list with Toy Story 4. Toy Story 4 is number 93. So I love the Toy Story franchise. I think it's a fantastic franchise, and I think what's amazing is that every one of those movies is so fun and watchable. And this one does a great job of just continuing that onward. When Woody finds a new friend that his owner Bonnie has created named Forky, he feels like he needs to keep Forky safe and watch over him, as Woody also begins to not be played with as much as a toy. And it explores a lot of interesting themes about like a retirement and like venturing onward to your newest path. It's such an interesting children's movie, and it's definitely one of the best of the decade. Number 92, I have Hereditary. That is a very different movie from Toy Story 4, let me tell you. But it's a horror movie that came out just last year, directed by a guy named Ari Aster, who has a habit of making some very strange movies. But I will say this movie, it was scary, it was intense, it was visceral, but it worked for me, and it was a really strong scare, but also a really solid watch, and because of that, it makes my top 100. At number 91, finishing off these first 10, is Big Hero 6, second animated movie, also a Disney movie, and Big Hero 6 actually won the Best Animated Feature for that year, and it's a really fantastic and fun movie. Love the lovable inflatable robot named Baymax, and he just shines in this movie. He's so much fun to watch on the screen. It's a really awesome adaptation of like a comic book, I believe, and it really feels comic booky and superhero, and it's a great superhero introduction for kids, I'm sure, as well. And it's a movie that definitely belonged on the list, and I'm glad it could find a spot. Continuing my animated features right now, at number 90 comes How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I'm sure a lot of people probably would have expected this to be higher. I love this movie. I just love so many movies more than it even. But How to Train Your Dragon is a really heartfelt tale about a boy and his dog, essentially, but it's a boy and his dragon, and it's fun to watch the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless develop, to see them flying through the sky together, and just what an amazing journey that they go on together. And it's a fantastic movie for kids and adults alike. We're continuing on with the documentaries at number 89 with Three Identical Strangers. This is a movie that came out last year, which last year, let me tell you, or 2 years ago rather, was the year for documentaries, 2018. Three Identical Strangers was another one I just loved, and I've seen it multiple times. I don't go back to documentaries very often, but this one is worth it, because the story that unravels is one that is fascinating about these triplets who discover that they have been separated at birth and discover they're related when they're in college. Crazy to believe story, but it's true, and to watch the events that unfold afterwards are mind-boggling. It's a must-watch, and I don't want to ruin anything about it. The next one on my list is also a documentary, number 88, Apollo 11. Apollo 11 is an awesome retelling and recapturing of the 1969 moon landing. I have never seen film like this before, of real events from in the past. It just felt like I was there. I was experiencing everything as it was happening, and I loved it. I loved feeling like I was there in 1969 as the rocket, took off and the astronauts were in space, and it felt like I was on the ground getting to watch this unfold before my eyes. I loved it, and for anyone who wasn't alive to experience the moon landing, I'd say Apollo 11 is a must-watch. Number 87, I am a huge sci-fi fan, and I'm so happy that my first sci-fi movie has shown up on the list. It is Super 8. This is directed by J.J. Abrams, 2011 movie, starring some kids who are really great actors and who are just trying to shoot a movie, and some interesting alien shenanigans start happening. And I really think that movies like this were able to pave the way for stuff like Stranger Things, that became such a hit phenomenon, one of my favorite shows, and this movie really paved the way for it. It's a real fun watch. It is a worthwhile one too. Speaking of kids acting, actually 86 is going to be Mud. Mud is it's a smaller movie. It's starring Matthew McConaughey, but it stars two kids along with Matthew McConaughey, who's a homeless man, and the relationship that develops between the kids and Matthew McConaughey is just so interesting, as it's kind of a pact that they grow with one another, and just between in Florida, between all these islands and the boats, and it's such an interesting and fun watch, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. Number 85, my first Marvel movie is here, and it is Thor Ragnarok. Like I said, Taika Waititi, this man can do no wrong in my eyes, and he upped the Thor franchise big time with this one, because Thor didn't have much going for him in the first couple Thor movies, but when he came in with a vengeance in Thor Ragnarok, Chris Hemsworth is hilarious. Taika Waititi kills it in the directing room, as he is able to make this movie such a fun telling of Thor and his continued legacy with the Avengers, and it is a very fun watch. My number 84 movie of the decade now is It. The original, not the original, but the 2017 It movie. This obviously stars a lot of the kids again, including Finn Wolfhard, of course, one of the great child actors out right now, as well as really great performance by Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. He's very intense and very intimidating, and I think that's what makes it shine as a really good horror movie, and it's going to go down as a remembered one, I think, this decade. Number 83 came out last year, and it is Ad Astra. This movie stars Brad Pitt, and it is another sci-fi adventure of a man venturing out into the unknown to try to find his father, who is hidden away near Neptune. So this actually is based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, which I find to be an incredibly interesting book. And because of that, this one meant a lot to me when I was watching it, and I really enjoyed it. So that's at 83. 82, we've got a little bit of a line here of 2019 movies, because 82 has A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This stars Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers, and it is such a heartfelt movie. He actually isn't even the star. I should say that Matthew Rhys brilliantly plays this reporter who is doing a piece on Mr. Rogers and just discovers how just amazing this man is and his life is. And it's such a touching and heartwarming movie about how this character is able to overcome a lot of his childhood demons through Mr. Rogers, this loving figure, and it's a heartwarming watch for those who haven't seen it. Number 81, and the last one of this original list, is going to be Uncut Gems. This one stars Adam Sandler, and if you had told me that I'd have an Adam Sandler movie in my top 100 of the decade, I would have said you were nuts until Uncut Gems came out. And it is the most anxiety-producing movie I've probably seen in my lifetime. Adam Sandler is fascinating in this movie, and it stars people like Kevin Garnett, who does a great job even, but this movie is just so fast-paced and chaotic, and it's freaky, and the Safdie brothers, the directors, just do a great job of making you feel this anxiety and tension throughout, and you don't even get one moment of peace until the screen, fades to black and this movie's over. But it's a fascinating one. It falls at number 81 on my list. So there you go. There's 100 through 81 of my top 100 of the decade list. I'm really excited to keep sharing with you what the other movies are, and we will continue next time with my movies numbered 80 through 61. So see you next time.